Hi, welcome to my YouTube channel, Afrisent with BT. If you're new here, please hit that subscribe button. And if you like this video, please like it, share it with a bunch of friends, and let's encourage each other. Let's all grow together. So today I know that some of you have watched that video, and if you haven't watched, just scroll down in the channel and find it about transferring your bachelor's degree as a nurse, foreign bachelor's degree as a nurse, to practice in the United States of America. So say you've done that transfer, you've sat for your Nclex, you passed, congratulations. What next? What do I do now? Right? So there are a couple of things. So you could choose to take a few classes. So this is what, don't be nervous. First of all, skills are skills. I'm telling you, the human body is the human body. It's the human body anywhere, everywhere, same anatomy. If you know your skills, you know how to cannulate, you know how to catheterize, you know all your skills, you'll be fine. The two biggest challenges you might find is the medication, that you will know them, but then different countries, this is going back to pharmacology when I was in school, like different countries have a different pharmacology list based on their economy, right? So developing countries like Uganda don't have the luxury to purchase certain drugs and kind of use them because they're more expensive, and yet countries like America, superpower, have the luxuries to have the best of the best. So your pharmacology, you will see that like we have a lot of, for example, antibiotics like augmentin. You have so many combined antibiotics here being given out compared to us who give one at a time, or one of each, for that to kind of combat gram negative and gram positive. So your pharmacology, just master your pharmacology and anticipate that that's going to be a learning curve for you when you start to practice. You need to start looking for a job. Don't be afraid, because you will learn on that job. You already have your skills. The things that are going to take you time is your pharmacology. So just anticipate that that's going to be a learning curve. But most times, if you work for a physician, maybe in a clinic or in a SNF, a skilled nursing facility, they also kind of always, like if it's hypertension, this is what they prescribe. If it's diabetes, this is what they prescribe. They kind of have their categories that they always go to. So over time, you'll get it as you start to practice. So, but that's a learning curve that you will have to kind of think about it. So I personally began working initially in an acute rehab, and then I worked in a skilled nursing facility, and then I moved to a hospital. So what you need to anticipate is like kind of, and I'll talk about the skilled nursing facility because I think that's a good place to start. And I would encourage, if you can't start on the night shift, it's not healthy. Don't do it for long. I did it for 8 years, and that wasn't wise of me. But it's a little slower, because during that day, physicians are moving around, especially in a hospital, and there are procedures. If you're in a med-surg unit, if you're in a surgical unit, we're admitting and discharging. You're admitting and discharging, so that activity is going on. You're having people who are coming from PACU, and they're coming to you. So it's intense, and you have people you're monitoring maybe for their potassium and replacing it. There's orders coming in as you work, and same with the night, but it's not as much, because at night orders have already been put in place, and you're basically maintaining the plan until morning, when a new plan will be implemented by the morning shift, and the physicians are awake, and everybody's working, and new plans are being implemented. So it's a little slower. It's good to start at that point, because especially if you're coming from a foreign country, just so that you familiarize yourself with all these things. If you're working in a SNF, they have like a category of the over-the-counters. So just how pills look, how do these bottles look, how do they feel, and then they have the category of them, the actual the prescriptions that each patient has. So the good thing is, most of these places will have like bubble packs, so per patient's name, and that's easy. But then I mean, California is like on another level, because they have these omnicells where you kind of just punch in the patient's name, and you just keep choosing the medications, and it will open just that particular cabin to get that medication. So say pharmacology, yes, just knowing the medications, what they do and all that stuff, that's going to be a learning curve. The other thing is that, like, just the equipment, just like I just mentioned, an omnicell, like there is no omnicell in Uganda. Or I don't know about other developing countries, but I will speak to Uganda because that's where I had my education and I practiced there, and then I moved. So and then I practiced on the East Coast, and then I moved to the West Coast. So it's quite different. Even when you move from like a SNF to a hospital, to an acute rehab and then a hospital, it's different because the resources available to these different settings are also different, right? So just that equipment part, how do things work? I remember when we used to give IVs, going to school. Maybe things have changed right now, but literally we had an IV pump only in the pediatric unit, and it was a donation from one of our missionary teachers, right? But everywhere else, we didn't even have IV drips. We didn't have that. Like, we had to count, especially like pediatrics are so sensitive, right? So you have to count the drops per minute and then calculate the volume that has been prescribed. You know what I mean? So just figuring out the pumps, the different types of pumps, because different settings have different types of pumps, how they work. If you're going to deliver, via white tube, if you're going to deliver one medication after another, alongside like all that information, if you're going to draw blood, just equipment, familiarizing yourself with equipment. So YouTube is amazing. Take time and like familiarize yourself with different things. For example, let's say if we had to place a Foley, right, we had to get all the different equipment. I need gloves, I need this, and then you kind of create what you need before you do the procedure, right? In America, we are lucky that we have a kit just for Foley catheter, a kit just to put an IV in, a kit to flash the Foley, a kit to, different things. So just knowing how those kits look, therosynthesis, whatever you're going to practice in, make use of YouTube. There are people who are demonstrating how these things are done. The technique of how to put a bag on, colostomy bag on, and take it off and all that stuff. But the kit and everything else that you might not have used in like a developing country is available here. So take time and like prepare yourself so that everything is not unfamiliar, and then the skill, it's already in you. You know what to do, and you have that African spirit. Yeah, that is a spirit of queens and kings, and don't you ever forget that. And whichever country you're coming from, you do have that spirit of your ancestors, and that should never leave you. So most of all, I'm a Christian, so I believe in God, and just trusting God that you're going to do a good job and give it your best. So pharmacology, the equipment, and the other thing is documentation. So the documentation, I remember going like my 1 year when I was purely clinical. I'm like, oh my goodness, you would have 80 patients to just administer. You start administering medication at 8, and by 3 you're still giving the morning medications. It was crazy, like understaffing of the highest order, like our ratios, insane. So documentation, you document on like 2-3 people who are really, really unwell, and everybody else you don't document. So in America, the documentation, and if you haven't documented, you haven't done it. It's a lawsuit country where everybody sues. So you don't want to be sued, and you lose your license, most of all jail time. You don't want any of that, because that could happen. You want to be able to document every single thing, and if God forbid somebody's life, somebody loses their life, they're going to track everybody who worked with that patient during that time, what happened. So you want to make sure that you have done proper documentation of everything you've done. And for documentation, we do study documentation in our program, but then make use of the nurse who is orienting you. First of all, when you get a job, so we'll talk about that, applying. When you get a job, find out about how much time you need for orientation. At least let them give you at least 6 weeks, because these days, some hospitals are good, they give you 3 months, but most places will give you like 6 weeks. If you work 3 days a week, that's really not ample time, but it's good enough. And if you have somebody who is your mentor, who you're supposed to be following and learning from, that's not good, let the supervisor know immediately so that they can change you, because once you let go and you're on your own, it's your license. So learn everything you need to learn. It's okay to ask questions. You'd rather err on the side of caution than try to not show that I don't know, and you end up hurting someone's parent, someone's child, another person's life. So always ask, err on the side of caution. Make use of your mentors. They're usually very good at assigning the right people who are patient, who can teach, who can show. And then if you feel still after that period of orientation you're not comfortable enough, ask for more time, and ask for to be particular. I want more time on this so that you can concentrate. If it's documentation, the person who is orienting you, initially they can do everything, but over time let them give you a patient or 2, 3, and then towards the end, like 2 weeks before the end of your orientation, take on the full load so that you kind of test yourself. How do I because remember, we work on time. They need you to be done in those 8 hours. They need to be done in those 12 hours. You've done all the medication. You've given each medication at the right time. If it's if it's morning by 9 a.m., or everybody has their morning medication. If it's 1 p.m., between 1 and 2:30, before you hand over your shift, everybody has their medication. Once whatever needs to be done has to be done in the time that you've been allocated. So you need to be able to receive, like, once you start orientation, ask as many things as possible, and kind of get a feel. Request that you orient on the run that you're going to be doing, especially if you're going to work in a SNF, which I advise, because it's a little slower and the patients kind of stay on the units longer, so it gives you a chance to master certain things, unlike hospitals where we usually have a turnover of 3 days, every 3 days or every 5 days. So if you come this week, you work maybe with the same lot of people, by next week it's like everybody's gone and you're getting a whole new set of patients. So there's a high turnover in the hospitals, but in the SNF you have time to kind of understand. So request that when you're orienting, you orient on the run you're going to work on, so that you kind of you learn the patients. This person likes to be given this medication before this medication early in the morning. This person is an early riser, this one is late, so I can start with this one. This one is diabetic, so I can I need to check their sugars first. Or this one has seizures, they have anti-seizures, so I need to kind of make sure that those are given at the exact time. If it's 9, it's 9. Like, you pace yourself based on that. So you want to, by the end of your orientation, to take on the whole load, like those last 2 weeks of your orientation, so you get that feel of, if I was alone without anyone covering me, how would I be able to handle that weight? You want to be able to do that. So yeah, so that's something kind of think about. So you've passed your Nclex, apply. Just apply everywhere. Most times for the weekends and night shifts, people don't want to do those things. Weekends, they just want to stay home and take time with their families and party and enjoy themselves. So people don't want to take on those shifts. So be okay with taking that weekend shifts. Be okay with doing the night shifts until you learn your craft, because you need to be confident, and people's lives depend on your practice. You're the final guard as a nurse. Like, the physician will write down, but you need to be able to abstractly think through, like, this dose doesn't look right. Like, that's why you need to know your stuff, because you're like, this dose doesn't look right. Or I remember one of my patients, on my med-surg unit, she woke up like, I feel like I have water in my lungs. And she had a line running, right? I'm like, oh my goodness, I read she had CHF, so had to stop that IV immediately, call the on-call and kind of get new orders to push a diuretic and stuff like that. So just having that clinical skill, like, what do I do? Why is this person complaining of this? What should I do? And I remember there's a time I was practicing, and it wasn't even my patient. Like, I was passing by, it was my acute rehab placement, and this patient I had seen a couple of days, very calm man, very okay. And I had a patient, because sometimes they share beds, rooms, like 3 of them. So I had one patient in that room, and the other nurse are taking care of the other patient. So I knew that patient, even if I wasn't taking care of them. And so I come in to take care of my patient, and I realized they're like incoherent. Like, they're speaking, but everything is like mumbo jumbled. And this is like, they've been on the unit. It's not like they're coming out of anesthesia, and maybe it's the anesthesia that's making them get that. They're speaking mumbo jumbo stuff. I'm like, no, something is off. I called the nurse immediately, and I realized, I'm like, wait, is he diabetic? Okay, let's check his sugar right now. He was going into a hypoglycemic. His sugar was dropping, and that is why. And as soon as we pushed that glucagon, that patient came back. And so when you're practicing, you're part of a team. Yes, that's not your patient, but that's someone's parent. That's somebody, that's a life. And but it comes just with practice, like you being like that abstract thinking, concrete thinking, critical thinking. That's what we call it, critical thinking, and not just being a task performer, because that's the one thing I've seen about nursing here. Most people are task performers. I need to get my tasks done. That's something I had to learn, because I kind of do comprehensive, and I remember one day one of my supervisors had to tell me, stop picking up tasks before you even do the ones that you're given. So for me, that was what I had to learn, to actually focus on a task, because I can't do everything. It's an 8-hour shift. So but then to balance, where you provide an excellent service. I have a spirit of excellence in me. I have the Holy Spirit in me. It's a spirit of excellence, and it should reflect in my work, in my profession, not just anything else. So yeah, so I've said so much, and I need to conclude this video, but apply. Go to Indeed, go to like, say you live in Woburn. I used to live in Woburn. Search all the sniffs around. You know, say you want to start with a sniff and you're more comfortable there. Even hospitals, because some hospitals have longer they have longer orientation periods, so you'll be okay. Don't be afraid. So you apply everywhere. Apply in like I wasn't like I did midwifery in Uganda, and I am very good if someone needed to have a baby right now. I am comfortable delivering a baby, but it wasn't my passion. So I did not apply labor and delivery because it wasn't my passion. Although when I was joining my current hospital, I applied everywhere, including labor and delivery, because I really wanted to join this hospital. It's an amazing place to work. So so look for the places that kind of, you know, they asking for your skill sets, your passion, and then apply. When they apply, prepare yourself for the interview. Work on your resume. We shall I'll do another video just on how to prepare your resume, how it should look, and so I'll put that in here, just because certain things need to be said a certain way, so that the algorithm, because these days everything is like filled in, you fill in, and then the computer itself kind of randomizes and sorts out its people, and then the managers are busy. So hiring is another task for them. They want to just not waste time on people who are not like qualified, right? So that's something we'll talk about another day. So do your resume really well, and then prepare yourself to interview, right? And be ready to talk about yourself, what you know, because even these people, they're busy. They just half the time they'll ask skill questions so that they're hiring a competent person, but also they just wanted to make sure that you can merge into that team, and they don't have to be kind of breaking fights all the time that are being created by you. So just that knowledge of knowing that okay, I need to, how can I say, like so they just need to know that you're going to work, you're going to merge well with that team. So sell yourself well, have a like you're having a conversation, you know. Check out some YouTube videos about interviewing. We shall do one about interviewing here, so you can know. And just be ready when you go, dress professionally. Don't wear your short skirt, don't wear low cleavage like I'm doing right now. You know, be very professional and be articulate, because I have a heavy accent, and so that you want, when you're speaking, don't be hurried, because sometimes when I'm nervous I will speak so fast because I feel like I want to say it all in one go. Be very composed, you know, and you know, express yourself. And before you actually go in, pray, you know, pray or have your routine of whatever your spirituality is. And personally, I pray and I say, God, I am trusting you. I've done my part. Now it's your part. I'm trusting you. May you know, anoint me with divine favor if this is where you want me to serve. Because for me, I believe that my profession is service. I serve and I love what I do, and I want to serve others. I want them to feel that passion when they receive a service from me. I want them to be better. I want to know that I laid it all out, and you know, if something doesn't go right, I did all I could. You know, that's just my way of doing work. So I pray and I say, God, if this is where you want me to serve, grant me this job. And I knock on doors. Don't be afraid. I remember the time when I was going to apply, I just like, as from filling out a registry at a registry, and I just said, wait, that's the hospital I want to apply to. I followed the directions. I went, I sat in, I applied, and thank God, here we are. So yeah, an interview, when you go on the unit, pray for favor as well. Pray that you find favor before the people orienting you. Let them just love you and teach you everything. And most times they'll also be your resource, because they are going to be working on the same unit. So if they are working while you're working, you can always ask them. And you can make use of everybody. Like if you ask Beatrice today, ask, you know, Brianna the next day, ask Jack the next day, so that you're kind of making use of everybody, so that the person doesn't feel like this girl is always asking me. But don't be afraid to ask. People who went to school with me know, like as the kid who always put up my hands like 5 minutes before break time. So teacher, what is this? So teacher, what's that? I was that kid, and I didn't care. I didn't care who was mad that I'm asking a question. If I don't know, there's another kid out there who doesn't know, and I'm asking on my behalf and their behalf. So ask, because we deal with people's lives and it's important. So good luck.